Hey guys, Joe here. So hopefully this one works out better. But basically, in case I delete the other video, what's going on is that we switched our focus over to mostly the wholesale at this point. So, up until this point, I had my wife and the other worker that were, basically focusing on the retail side. But I keep on everything just between what's actually being booked, what's going on, what the potential, profitability and all that kind of stuff is. And I'm like, you know what? Like, we're just going all in. Like, I can't keep on doing this. Like, we're not seeing the numbers that I want to see. And I really feel as though it's, economy wise, it's not too great. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to favor the cheaper companies out there, and we're just not that. With the everything that we have set up, like it's just in everything we know now, like we're not gonna go cheaper. It just one, it's just you have to deal with more jobs to create the same amount of profit. The people that are paying less are typically more of a pain in the ass to deal with, typically. And like it's just not worth it. Like it's just not. To keep on increasing the amount of jobs we have, because I told my wife, it's like, what if I could snap my fingers, and like we're booking three times the amount of jobs, which I realistically think it should be able to happen, just because we're closing at 7%. Like, let's get to 15 and 20%, right? And I'm like, would you be happy? And she's like, no. So, um, so even if life was great and we're, pulling a ridiculous amount of money, it's still not what we want to do, right? So that's why we're switching to wholesale. And long term, it's just a better profitability. And what you can look at in your own business, and it's what I did. It's like, how much are these customers worth for each of these different opportunities? What is like the potential issues, and like, for the fulfillment, like what does that look like, right? And then, long term, which one's more profitable, right? And for us, like everything is pointing towards a wholesale. Like, yes, we're making less money per job, but yes, it is a lot easier to fulfill these orders since we have the infrastructure set up. And then long term profitability wise, like, fence companies are selling, or customers are selling, one for 20 and 30 years. Whereas with the fence companies, like you're booking like two and three jobs a week, right? So it just makes more sense. So an example I started giving in the other video is basically like if you're doing, if you're a landscaper, right? So if you have a lawn care division and you have a paver division, you just got to start looking at like which one's more profitable, so you can go after that, right? And for pavers, just say you're making like an average of $3,000 per job. I don't know what the numbers are, right? So if you're making $3,000 per job, and then the lawn care, what if you're making $30 per week profit after paying your guys and all that kind of stuff? Like, which one would you go to? And like, this is where it kind of depends. Like if you're in like Florida or somewhere south where the grass is always growing, so you're cutting 52 weeks out of the year. Well, if you're making $30 profit after a year, that's $1,500. And like you do it year after year after year, if you have them in for 4 years, then that's $6,000, right? And so it's two times more profitable than the paver. But then you also have to look at like what's that cost, what's the cost between financially and for yourself, mentally. What does it cost you to have, the lawn care being done compared to the pavers? Like I would think that the lawn care is probably easier to do, but then you need more staff, and then whereas the pavers is just a bigger job, but that's something with more specialized knowledge, and you might only have a handful of people that know how to do it. So if one of them leaves, then that could be a potential issue. So anyway, that's what so it's kind of like how we looked at it. Which one's more profitable? Which one would we rather do? Which one do we enjoy more? And it just comes down for me. I really enjoy talking to the business owners, things like that, and I just enjoy it more. Like I just do. So that's why we're focusing on it. So that's where we're kind of at this week. I didn't get as much as I wanted to today, just because I had to stop for 1 o'clock, so I can watch my daughter. But it is what it is, because now my wife is focusing on calling like all these other fence companies and landscapers and everyone else. So it's a better use of her time. Whereas before, like she was, talking to like these fence customers, And I'm like, it's just a waste of, like, I'm not coming home for you to talk to people to possibly book one job. Like, it's just not worth it, right? And I think as we grow as businesses, like, we kind of do the same thing, right? So before, we used to take on any kind of job, and then it just gets to the point where it's like, I'm not leaving the house unless I'm making X amount per day or per hour or whatever, which is perfectly fine. And that's pretty much what we're at. Like, I'm not wasting our time on these one-time customers, just because we book at 7%. Like, she's got to talk to 13 people in order to book a job. Like, I'm not watching my daughter so she can talk to 13 people to book a job. Like, I'm just not doing it. But with the wholesale customers, I will. So that's where we are. Anyway, hope you guys have an awesome day. Talk to you soon.